Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I make gotcha videos and sometimes I do this. Today, welcome to the ultimate guide to my OCs, because no one wants to listen to me ramble about my OCs in real life, so I'm doing it on the internet. Also, I totally just woke up, so I might sound like that throughout the rest of this video, and this video totally won't take forever. I'm gonna start with the first OC that I still use to this day, and then move on to more recent. Let's get started. Starting off strong with Cipher. This is probably going to be a short entry because I don't really want to spoil Gravity Falls for you guys. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And 99% of her lore includes spoiling 99% of like the Book of Bill and Gravity Falls as a whole. But I also don't really want to get into the lore of a fandom OC. So here's just a little bit. So Cipher is the daughter/clone of Bill Cipher. He created her to get closer to the Pines family and basically disguise herself as a kid. And he was like, how can I get closer to them by using my own brain? So he thought, I could just take a piece of me and create another version. That's as much as I want to give away for her. Cipher was created sometime in 2020 when I first got into Gravity Falls, and the reason I created her was originally because I took heavy inspiration, and by heavy inspiration I mean straight up copying this already existing Gacha Life mini-movie that I believe Yami XOX or Chariot reacted to, and it was about this like magician and his like transforming rabbit, and I think they were dating or they had some kind of relationship that was super confusing, like he liked her. Anyway, I'll see if I can't find it. Cipher was created as like a copy of that story. I think I even made the magician, but at some point I was like, Zipper, Dipper, they rhyme. And then I ended up doing OCX canon with Dipper. I got out of my phase of Loki having a crush on Dipper because I was young enough to do that, but now I am not, so I do not ship myself with Dipper anymore because Zipper is in fact a self-insert. That's about it for Zipper. Alright, now we are on to the way too complex and developed stories that aren't for fandom stories, fandom lore and stuff. So you may recognize the name The Heart of a Vampire from me promising I would make an animated pilot titled The Heart of a Vampire. I had an entire layout for the entire series, including Season 1 and Season 2, but I gave up. I wrote the script, I rewrote the script, I had other people read it, I even had body sheets ready, and I was about to get voice actors, but two things. One, 99% of the people who audition for these voice acting roles that are like 15 online are usually girls or trans guys, and they don't have the voice that I was kind of imagining in my head. And two, I don't have the motivation or time or energy to animate an entire animated pilot without using Gacha Life. I'm still working on a different animated pilot that I am taking time with rather than rushing it like I did with Heart of a Vampire. Anyway, now onto the lore, because I know that's what you've all been waiting for. I'm a poet. Alright, millions of years ago, before humans lived vampires, there were three kinds of vampires: the bat vampire, the butterfly, and the bird. Each has wings corresponding to their names. There was a war between the vampire rulers because the Bat King didn't want to be a vampire anymore. He didn't like it, I guess. The kingdoms agreed the bats would stay on Earth, and the other two kingdoms would just move up into the clouds. Humans then basically took over Earth, and the Bat King decided to kill everyone in his kingdom because he was stubborn. Mark was the only one to survive. Throughout all of this, the Butterfly King created two purple crystals, or amethysts, one for himself, one for a witch he met in the woods that he was very close with. the witch in the forest happened to be Mark's mother. Mark's mother sacrificed herself and gave the amethyst crystal to him during the Bat War. Elizabeth's earring and Mark's necklace are the same crystal. Elizabeth gave hers to Mark. After all of this backstory stuff, Mark was about 16 when all of this went down, or in human years, 1600 years old. So since Mark totally had a high school education still, he went to human high school and stuff, which is just a funny little detail. Anyway, he's about 20-something years old now, 20-something, 100 years old now, and he runs into Michael Van Helsing. They kind of talk a little bit, because he's in this bar. They kind of talk a little bit, they get to know each other. Michael does not know that Mark is a vampire, and Mark is kind of freaking out because he knows who Michael is, and he's like, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't realize I'm a vampire. Michael does not realize, by the way. They get to know each other a little bit. Then Michael is kind of suspicious of Mark a little bit, because Mark is like, vampires aren't real, how dare you? And Michael's like, yes they are, because my father's killed so many of them. And Mark is like, okay bro. Later on, throughout the entire series that I had planned, they would fight different monsters, and in the first episode, Mark would be forced to reveal himself because Michael is just low-key kind of bad at fighting. So throughout all the episodes, Mark is the savior of the day, while Michael is just failing miserably, but he gets better, and then they become besties, and then maybe hint to a relationship. But that's about it for what I had planned for the series. The Bat King would be revealed to be Michael's father, where he's the son of a hunter. And anyway, that's about it for the story. I, again, didn't have much going for it, which is why I kind of gave up on the storyline. And the only plot twist I had was that I did come up with a cute spin-off series where Michael and Mark were reincarnated as a bird and butterfly vampires, because in the end they did die. But they died peacefully, and they died falling in love with each other. So it was cute or whatever. But yeah. And that's where this one ends. Alright, now I get to explain the lore of Zach and Ashley. Now, here's the thing. I already made a poorly explained OC lore, which is basically just the entire thing. So, you can find that in the description, while I explain the stuff that happened before the events of that story, and a little bit of the in-between details. Mostly because this video is already getting longer than I wanted it to be, and also, I don't want to explain the entire lore again, I'm not gonna lie. So, in the original poorly explained OC lore, it goes pretty much as in-depth as I would in this video anyway. So again, you can find it in the description, and I can explain the little details in between each thing. So, in the original poorly explained OC lore video, Zach mentions a homophobic friend, and that is Justin, Ryan, and Jessica. And they kind of have their own girl group and boy group. Jessica being the leader, kind of like a Regina type of this 5-girl group, and the boy group, basically it's just 5 boys and 5 girls, including Jessica and Zach and Justin and Ryan. Jessica's dating Justin, but cheating on him with Ryan, because Justin is the sweetest guy ever, minus the fact that he's low-key homophobic, and Ryan's a stoner, and that's all he has going for him, unfortunately. But there's a lot of stuff in between there where Zach and Justin are besties, but they low-key hate each other, but also Zach has a really big crush on Justin, but is in denial about it, and then Justin finds out about the crush, and then kind of quote-unquote breaks up, friend breakup with Zach, And then he moves away. Like a week later, he moves away. And guess who moves into the school? Ashley, all the way from Canada. I don't know geography, and frankly, I don't care to learn, so I'm just gonna say he's from Canada and not elaborate. Anyway, that's like the biggest / smallest detail that happened like in between. Zach had braces and got them off around the same time Justin moved away, so Ashley never got to see Zach with braces, but that's, again, really small detail. Anyway, like I said, all the important details are in the poorly explained OC lore. So if you want to know the entire story, you can check the description for that. Alright, before you laugh, this was originally made as a parody. So there was this Gacha Life mini-movie from 2020 that was certainly something. I don't want to make fun, but it's 2020, it was 2020, it's 2020, okay? It's 5 years ago now. I'm sure they have changed and grown as a person and a writer. Moving on. The whole story is just about Santa's son, Nick, or Nicholas, and Krampus' son, Kris, basically just falling in love. It's like a forbidden love type thing. They're not allowed to be in love or whatever because Santa's low-key racist. The context for racist Santa, by the way, in case you've ever heard me joke about accidentally making Santa racist in one of my OC's lore, here's the context. Santa and Krampus were like BFFs. They were besties. Krampus was hired as a helper and like an assistant, and then one day Santa's dad was like, Loki just freaking hates this guy because it's a generational job as Santa. So Santa's dad was like, nuh-uh, you can't, like, he's not an elf, first of all, and second of all, he's like annoying and I don't like him and you guys are too close and blah blah blah. So Santa was like, okay, and then he got into an argument with Krampus and they were in the workshop or whatever, and they were by some big machinery, and there was an elf nearby that was trying to get Santa's attention because he needed help with something, and Santa pushed Krampus, which he fell into the elf and pushed the elf into said big machinery and killed the elf, and it was a gruesome scene. Santa didn't want to go down and be blamed for this along with Krampus, so he just blamed Krampus. And Krampus was imprisoned, and then Santa just slowly started to believe this lie that he created, that all monsters like Krampus are horrible, and now people are racist towards Krampus's species in the North Pole. Before you come in with the actually Krampus is a folklore thing, I know the whole point of this story was a commentary. It started out as a parody and now it's just a commentary. I know, I'm so original. So later on down the line in the story, Santa's son Nicholas is like, I don't want to be the next Santa. So on his 18th birthday, before he officially becomes Santa, he breaks into the prison that Krampus is in, which is basically just like another dimension, and he breaks in and he meets Kris, which is Krampus' son, and he keeps going back because they like became besties, and then they fall in love, and then Santa finds out and then publicly executes Krampus and imprisons Kris because Krampus put a spell on Kris that makes it so he can't be harmed. And then years later, Nick is trying to wait for his dad to die, but he's like, it won't happen any faster, so he just decides to straight up kill him, and it's like, this is your fault, you brought this on yourself because you're such a horrible person. And Nick becomes the king and frees Kris, and then they get to reunite, and then they're besties again, and then and then they get married, and the end. That's the entire story. It's so interesting, I know. But yeah, that's it. That's it. Before anyone asks, it's pronounced Rayzalio or Rayzalio if you want to say it fast. I think a Rayzalia is a flower. It is not. Alright, so I created these guys 2 months ago, I think now. Alright, so let's start with Dr. Edwards. This guy, he gets married to a very lovely woman. She gives birth to her first son about 5 years later? 11 years later? 11 years later, she gives birth to another kid and then dies. And then she dies. She dies while giving birth because I don't know. I need to get her out of the picture so I have an excuse to not have to create another character. Guys, I'm great at creating characters, trust. Matt is the second child, Matthew. He's also one of the main characters, but not who the story is named after. And his brother, who originally was named Anthony, but I forgot that I named him Anthony and then ended up naming him Colin. So now his name is Colin Edwards, which unfortunately is backwards Twilight character, and I'm thoroughly embarrassed about that because it was a complete accident. Then we got the dad, Dr. Edwards. I gave him a first name, but I don't remember it. Moving on. So these three, they're not very happy, actually. Dr. Edwards is pretty depressed about his wife dying, but he's like one of those guys who thinks they are not allowed to show emotions because he's a dude. The reason his name's Dr. Edwards is because, surprise, he works at a military science lab on a military base. One fateful night, Matthew is about 1 year old. It's been a year since the wife/mother died. Colin is like 11. I think that's what I settled on. And of course, Dr. Edwards is just chilling in the house. And then all of a sudden, there's a crash in their backyard. Dr. Edwards goes out to the backyard and is like, holy crap, there's a spaceship cradle thing in our backyard, Superman style. And Colin's like, oh my god, Superman mentioned. Is it Superman? No, it's this green looking baby thing with antenna and pointy ears. And Dr. Edwards is like, oh my god, it's an alien. So you know what they have to do, right? Dr. Edwards, like I said, military scientist dude, immediately leaves the 11-year-old to take care of the 1-year-old and rushes to his work and immediately starts like taking care of this baby like it's his own, which is really depressing. 8 years go by, he's still in the lab. Matthew and Ray start to get along because Dr. Edwards has CPS called on him once and he doesn't want it again, so he has to drop his kids off at the lab now. So Matthew and Ray start hanging out. Matthew starts giving Ray like these comics that he loves called Tanks vs. Aliens. He starts giving him VHS tapes of like Lilo and Stitch that have aliens in it because he's like, you should totally see what humans think of aliens and like how we see aliens. And Ray's like, cool. So anyway, he gives him clothes, VHS tapes, because that's what year this takes place in, and of course, the comics, which comes into play later. Later is right now. So Ray reads Tanks vs. Aliens, and then on one fateful night, Ray starts talking in full sentences, because before he didn't really talk like at all. He communicated in yeses and nos, which was a step up from his nodding and shaking. So he, started talking, and Matthew's like, oh my god, like, you can speak in full sentences, and Ray's like, yeah, I can. So Dr. Edwards comes back to pick up Matthew after they're playing a game or whatever, and Ray just books it out of there. He's gone. He runs, and then he leaves the base, and he gets abducted by aliens. Like 13 years later, I did the math. Ray is part of this like group of rogue aliens that he was raised by, and his found family mother, Farlonia, is the leader of this rogue alien group, and is like, hey, I want to retire. Ray, you're 21, you're old enough now, you can become the leader, but you have to prove yourself, so go back down to Earth, kill the guy that experimented on you. So Ray lands, instead of crashing, he lands in Matthew, Colin, and Dr. Edwards' backyard again. He goes inside, he threatens Matthew and Colin, and is like, if you guys don't let me stay at your house or your apartment or whatever, I'm gonna kill you. And they're like, okay, just please don't hurt us. So he ends up staying in Matthew and Colin's apartment, and Colin's on a vacation, so he just sleeps in Colin's room. Matthew and Ray get to know each other a little bit. A few months go by, and by a few I mean like 2 or 3, and Ray's finally like, okay, I'm ready to kill your dad. And Matthew's like, what? And then Ray's like, I'm gonna go kill your dad so I can prove myself to become the leader of this group of rogue aliens. And Matthew's like, no. So he follows Ray to the science lab, and Matthew's like standing in front of Dr. Edwards and it's like, don't kill my father. And Ray's like, but I have to. And Matthew's like, no. So then Ray's like, okay, I'm just gonna give up. If you don't move, I'm just gonna shoot you both. And he does. He kills both of them. And before he's able to leave, he's like, I love Matthew too much and I need to save him. So he saves him and then leaves. And then Matthew wakes up and he's like, well, my dad's dead. That's crazy. Where's Ray? And then he realizes Ray went back to space. And Ray is the leader of the rogue alien team now. And Matthew has a dead dad. And that's the end of the story. Alright, that's it. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. And I will see you guys next time. I still don't have an outro. Bye!